It's no secret that the two former titans of Minecraft minigame servers, Mineplex and Hypixel, are not what they used to be. Things change. Hypixel for the better, Mineplex for the worse. That may be an understatement. Just take a look at the player counts over the years. People have cited a lot of different reasons for Mineplex's decline, and everyone you ask about this will have a different answer, will place more emphasis on an issue you maybe never even thought of before. See, the topic of why Mineplex died has been done to death. There's such an ungodly amount of videos and forum posts about it that I myself am kinda sick of it. Also, people don't often hit the mark very well with their analysis because they are biased due to their own subjective perceptions and experiences on the server. A survival games player is likely to give completely different reasons for Mineplex's decline than a Castle Siege player. Because of this, I asked those who know best. The people I have credited in the description, who have dedicated themselves to playing on Mineplex and or Hypixel through nearly their entire histories. The reasons they put forth for Mineplex's decline are sometimes still biased, as are my own and everyone else's, but I lend much more credence to them for being more wholly ingrained in their experiences on these servers. In any case, I think it's important that instead of just people randomly throwing out these singular, blanket statement reasons as to why Mineplex died, based only on their own subjective perceptions and experiences on the server, we should come to realize that there is no singular reason as to why Mineplex died, nor a singular reason as to why Hypixel thrived. Even more challenging is trying to determine how much each factor may have contributed to Mineplex's downfall. So in this video, I'm going to bring up some more potential factors that may have contributed to Mineplex's decline, some that may have at the same time contributed to Hypixel's growth, and I hope they're ones that you haven't heard of or thought of before. Then, what I find more interesting, I'm going to discuss the question of whether or not Mineplex is truly dead. Obviously, there's no denying its player base has dropped by over 1000%. That's a cute way of saying that at one point it was hitting 30,000 concurrent players, now it's around 3,000. What a fall from grace! How pitiful in comparison to what Mineplex used to be. But does all this dramatized, shameful regret actually mean that the server is dead? How do we define a dead server? If Mineplex can somehow bounce back to its former glory, if it still has a chance at that, is it truly dead? Death is supposed to be irreversible. Is Mineplex's loss of players and popularity something that is irreversible? You may already be asking these questions, and that's great because it's what we're going to talk about. Also, you may have already noticed, but I will be focusing more on Mineplex's fall rather than Hypixel's rise, mostly because I think it was less of Hypixel doing anything special or different in their years of growth, and rather more of just Mineplex's players migrating to Hypixel. Alright, so first, as I said, reasons Mineplex died that I hope you haven't heard of or thought of. Be warned, just because I talk a lot about the following reasons doesn't make them more important, I just think they're worth hearing because few people consider them. Mineplex copying Hypixel is something you've probably heard, may believe, but have maybe not seen used as a factor contributing to Mineplex's fall. Now, in arguing Mineplex's copying of Hypixel was a contributing factor here, am I admitting that Mineplex has copied Hypixel? Yes, but actually no. This has been talked about a lot already by a lot of people. There's more minigame servers than Mineplex and Hypixel, and they all seem to inspire each other, very often. You have Hypixel's build battles inspiring Mineplex's master builders, you have Mineplex's Draw My Thing inspiring Hypixel's pixel painters, you have GomHD inspiring both CubeCraft's Egg Wars and Hypixel's Bed Wars, which ultimately inspired Mineplex's Cake Wars. But who inspired who, or who copied who, or whatever verb you want to use, inspired, copied, originated, I don't care. Personally, I think that Mineplex has been inspired more often than it's been the inspiration, but why is my opinion different than anyone else's? Anyways, speaking of Cake Wars, I want to talk about two cakes. Some old motivational artwork from Stuffman Art, here is their Tumblr, go check them out. While it is true that the audience can appreciate both cakes in the case of Mineplex's doppelganger features and Hypixel's original or not original features, I think many people mostly stick to one cake. And a lot of the audience response, as we've seen, has been less, wow, 2 cakes, and more, well, the other guy came up with the idea to make a cake first, and so you just copied his idea and made it worse. Your cake sucks. If you want to take inspiration from something instead of being original, you need to try to expand on and improve upon that which you're copying. This is the correct route. Let's take the example of Skype and Discord. Skype was made first, it was the original, and Discord was made after, and both apps serve this function of remote group conversations, both in text and in voice. Did Discord copy Skype for using their same general concept? Well, I think it's a lot more forgivable and actually acceptable since Discord expanded on Skype's original concept so much. The addition of servers with channels was completely new and a great innovation. Discord servers themselves can facilitate feelings of community and belonging so much more effectively than any Skype call. Group conversations in Skype are never permanent. You usually end up just making a new call with the same 6 people every few weeks because you found that too many people who weren't all mutual friends were being invited to the previous one. Having customizable roles for each Discord server is yet another wonderful addition. There's nothing close to anything like that in Skype. Custom emotes that can be added and removed with ease. Again, Skype didn't have that. And Discord's main monetization feature of Nitro is just so much more appealing to consumers than Skype making you pay for long-distance calls. I mean, I could go on, but it's clear that Discord has added so much to the initial concept laid forth by Skype. The wrong route would be to copy something only in superficial ways, like changing your color scheme or text font from the original concept. That just shows the audience that you're only trying to pathetically mask the fact that you're copying others. But Mineplex ended up doing just that, as Technoblade pointed out in a 2015 video. Colored glass panes instead of colored woolen master builders versus build battles respectively. No one will catch on. Mineplex, probably. People caught on. Bricks instead of iron ingots in Cake Wars versus Bed Wars respectively. No one will catch on. Mineplex, probably, again. So I could point out every single instance of Mineplex copying or being inspired by Hypixel, but that's not the point of this video. The point is, if your only big reaches for growth as a server are to copy or take inspiration from the best server, and you're not revising the copied features to be better, then you just become a worse version of whatever you're copying. Mineplex copied Hypixel's quest system, but on Mineplex the set of quests you get are random, and the ones you want may not be available, unlike Hypixel's system where quests are constant and always available. Hypixel had lobby parkour for every game mode before Mineplex implemented theirs, but Mineplex doesn't even have a timer or checkpoint system. I said I wasn't going to point out every single instance of Mineplex copying Hypixel, but it was too tempting and it does prove my point. It's not Hypixel and Mineplex anymore, it's Hypixel and Hypixel but worse. Gee, I wonder which server people are going to want to play on. And this is kind of what a lot of people want to hear, right? Haha, Mineplex, you have failed because you have not listened to us, the people. The people said, do not copy Hypixel. You copied Hypixel. Now you have failed, as is deserved. Ha ha ha. A related commonly cited reason for Mineplex's decline was the outrage over Mineplex changing their lobby in 2018 to be more modern like Hypixel. Without Mineplex's original lobby featuring their big trademark tree in the center, a lot of nostalgia value was lost and people were upset about this. There may be some worth in players trying to return to Mineplex after a hiatus, seeing that things are not what they used to be, aka a failure of nostalgia, and then being like, this isn't what I remember Mineplex being like, I'll just play on Hypixel instead. Who can recall saying something along the lines of, none of my friends play Mineplex anymore, they all play Hypixel, so I'm going to join them. People leaving a server causes more people to leave a server. It's just a vicious cycle. One of the biggest nightmares that a minigame server can have is a dwindling player base. Your business model is totally dependent on a surplus of players to sustain each of the multiple game modes. If players are leaving, queue times for each game mode increase, especially for those games that are less popular. So those fringe games start getting cut, and the respective cult-like mini-communities of people that were very passionate about these games have great reason to just leave the server, meaning the player base decreases again, meaning longer queue times, meaning more games have to get cut, and so on. This vicious cycle has other devastating side effects too. Fewer players equals fewer potential patrons of the server. Basic math. There will be more donators in a group of 10,000 people than in a group of 1,000 people. And the value of just having more people on your server extends further. Who wants to buy a donator rank on smaller servers when you can flex a rank to more people on a larger server or the largest server and feel like it matters more and you've gotten more value for your purchase? All of this is the snowball effect. Once the ball gets rolling, it just gets bigger and bigger and harder to stop. For Mineplex, this snowball was terrible because it meant greater and greater losses to their server and player base. For Hypixel, this snowball was amazing because it meant more and more players leaving their rival server to potentially join their own. This is one that many people already believe contributed to Mineplex's fall, but I think it's a really significant one and is worth discussing. Who is the biggest YouTuber that plays on Mineplex? Me, apparently. Name the biggest YouTuber that plays on Hypixel. Technoblade. Need I say more? Hypixel has enough big pseudo-celebrities that they have their own YouTuber news channel, Lego Maestro. Mineplex is light years away from having that level of success. With all this said, maybe people are looking at it backwards. Is Hypixel popular because it has a lot of YouTubers, or did the YouTubers start recording on Hypixel because it was popular? Most people seem to believe the former, which is why they cite YouTubers' influence as a reason for Hypixel's popularity, but it wouldn't surprise me to find that the distribution of YouTubers across these two servers is simply symptomatic of Hypixel's popularity gain. In 2017, I myself moved my channel's content from Mineplex to Hypixel because Mineplex was a sinking ship and Hypixel was gaining so much traction. As I said in the disclaimer near the start of this video, the reasons I've given so far are, I think, far from enormous contributors to Mineplex's downfall. Maybe that leaves you unsatisfied. You want to know what really put the nail in the coffin. What do I think that is? I think it's that Mineplex basically got hit with the 7 plagues between the years of 2015 to 2018. The server underwent a big series of really bad looks. First, Mineplex's anti-cheat was completely unprepared to deal with a massive wave of hackers that showed up thanks to the influence of hacking YouTubers such as Ripped Gaming, Silly Skywalker, and Xturtle. Then, in November 2016, the owner of Mineplex, Defect7, had his account hacked and what is now known as the Mineplex Massacre ensued, where a group of hackers were given operator permissions on Mineplex. It's worse than it sounds. Around the same time, there was a server known as Fakeplex which used direct source code from Mineplex, so the servers were practically identical and all the staff ranks with admin permissions were available and sold to anyone who wanted them. Think about it. The biggest Minecraft server in the world at the time with a security level about as strong as having your password be password. Then, what may have been the killing blow for Mineplex is when in January 2018, a developer lead named Alex the Coder purposefully and with good intention pardoned every single hacking ban applied to players over the years. I do not think I have to tell you why this was a bad idea. This unbanned, no exaggeration, hundreds of thousands of previously banned compromised accounts. No staff members were made aware of this happening until after the update went out, so explanations were practically non-existent for a good while. The mess from this is still being cleaned up today. Many of these compromised accounts that were unbanned are still having to be rebanned to this day. You may be wondering, why did Alex think this would be a good idea? You're as likely to come up with the answer as anyone, including Alex himself. This stuff reads like a fantasy novel. So even after all the hacking, the Mineplex Massacre, and network bans of really popular figures like Rebel Guy and Intergalactic JC, which I did not initially mention, sorry, this debacle made Mineplex look like the ultimate joke. A blunder on this level is, I think, unparalleled. And now I'm going to move on to the final point I want to talk about in the first section of this video, one that I think is not considered often and is important if we want to think about a potential Mineplex revival. What are bangers? Things that bang. In 2010, Minecraft was a banger. In 2018, it was Fortnite. To a lot of people, my original Aeon II video was a banger. I think you get the idea now. If not, see this Urban Dictionary definition. So how is this relevant to this video? Hypixel puts out more bangers than Mineplex. End of story. Hypixel has Bed Wars, Sky Wars, Housings, Duels, all bangers. It was Sky Wars that pushed Hypixel above Mineplex, and Bed Wars that sent it skyrocketing to the uncontested top. Hypixel released Skyblock on June 11th, 2019, and it is currently their biggest banger. So that's the effect that bangers can have, and it seems like Hytale is going to be one too. Riot Games says so. Who's Riot? They made this game. I think that when Mineplex decided they needed a banger to resuscitate their server from the brink of death, they simply weren't successful on the execution. A lot of new game modes came out that I think were attempted bangers. Evolution, Bok Bok Battles, Skyfall, Cake Wars. Clans was supposed to be a banger, and it may have been if not for the enormous 1 year-ish delay that killed a lot of the hype. So because none of these games got off the ground and into the banger status that Mineplex was jealous of after seeing Hypixel's success with Sky Wars and Bed Wars, Mineplex had just dug themselves a deeper grave. How? Because as I mentioned earlier, as a minigame server, you can't just pump out games without respecting the reality that is the size of your player base. Mineplex was already losing players by the time these games came out, and by releasing more games, they were stretching their already dwindling player base across more and more game modes. How big of a problem is this? Just check out the player counts in Mineplex's games. So many of them just get no players because they just have too many games as a result of the enormous losses of players they suffered, and because they made too many games when it was already becoming unsustainable. With that aside, I want to add that because Mineplex was releasing these new games, they had less resources to expend on updating or fixing older games and problems. And every time they add a new game, that's just spreading themselves even thinner. It's just one more thing they potentially have to perform occasional updates and bug fixes on. Remember that being too slow to put out updates or fix problems is one of the commonly cited reasons for Mineplex's downfall. So as well as being multifactorial, the reasons for Mineplex's decline are more interconnected than many others think, from what I can see at least. Quick disclaimer, yes, this is completely speculation, but it does have a good basis. I am indeed outright assuming that Mineplex released these new games as attempted bangers, rather than just, stretching out their already thin player base across a relatively absurd number of games for fun. I see no reason why you would release a game on a minigame server unless you thought it would be very successful, and or would reach an audience that doesn't yet populate your server. And it's important to note that this phenomenon isn't exclusive to Mineplex nowadays. Hypixel is the most popular server in the world and constantly has like over 60,000 concurrent players, but they still fail to draw players to their smaller, more niche games. PvP Run, TNT Wizard, Speed UHC, and Crazy Walls are looking a little bit like Runner from Mineplex, so this 0 player thing doesn't necessarily mean a server is doing badly. It can merely be a consequence of the player base being so heavily concentrated in just a few game modes, those being the bangers. But for Mineplex, there's no bangers where people are heavily concentrated. Are you going to call 300 players in one game heavily concentrated after looking at Hypixel's Bed Wars with 10,000 players? Right now, having this ridiculous abundance of game modes and shortage of players is hurting Mineplex, as I've demonstrated. But as we'll discuss later, it may serve them well in the long run as a form of permanent infrastructure, if they manage to make a comeback. In the end, I do respect Mineplex's attempt. If Mineplex actually managed to put out a Bed Wars-like banger with one of those games, then maybe they could have bounced back and stayed competitive with Hypixel. The thing is, it's not easy to come up with a banger. There's no great way of telling whether or not a game is going to be popular until after it's offered to the public. It's the same with making YouTube videos. I expect this video to bang somewhat. 10,000 views? More? I can't really say. Anyways, banking on a banger to carry you to your former success for a minigame server is a desperate move, and I can see why Mineplex went that route given they were just leaking players non-stop and needed a way to stop it fast. Now, because I'm speaking in these speculative hypotheticals, this is a good time to move on to the next major part of this video. Can Mineplex come back? To discuss this, let's continue our discussion with bangers. If, as I said, a banger could have saved Mineplex from its downfall, can a banger still revive it today? Short answer, yes. I mean, really, why not? A really good banger can bring something from the darkest depths of obscurity to the top trending pages of every social media on the internet. Fidget spinners were invented in 1993, and the internet just randomly decided to make them go from nobody knows what this thing is to super ultra banger mode in 2017. Of course, given the limits of interest in Minecraft and even video games in general, a banger on this level would be very, very unlikely for a Mineplex game mode. And although bangers have immense power, you can't just release a banger and ride that high of popularity for eternity. You have to put in good work to sustain the temporary growth that banger gave you. Think about a dying campfire. You can start fanning the flames all you want, but the flames only have so much to burn through before you're left with nothing but ashes and embers. You gotta put in some logs for the flames to chew on. The flames are the bangers. The logs are what you put in to establish more permanence in your popularity. And this lesson should be familiar to Mineplex, who, for the longest time, was extremely popular and unfortunately realized too late that didn't mean they were untouchable. So assume Mineplex releases a banger that carries them from 2,000 or 3,000 concurrent players to 10,000. If this popularity is only going to last a few weeks, maybe a couple months at best, what should Mineplex do to keep these numbers up for a longer period of time? The answer is, I think, obvious but vague. Mineplex would have to take measures to fix the problems which caused people to leave in the first place. Haha, helpful. This is a good example of how criticism is easy and solutions are difficult. Anyways, this goes back to the very start of the video where I listed all those commonly cited reasons for Mineplex's decline. Yeah, it's a super boring conversation now that it's been parodied so many times. Mineplex died because of lag, because of hackers, because games weren't getting updated, because games were getting removed. But most of those are legitimate reasons and cannot be overlooked simply because people have stated them over and over and over and over and over in an attempt to appear intelligent and analytical. That's what I'm doing right now. I hope I'm doing a better job. But I think it shouldn't be surprising to people that Mineplex has to be a good server to achieve longevity in its popularity, for people to stay on it for the years to come. As it stands, I do not think Mineplex is a good server. Having a massive influx of new players will not magically make it a good server either. Why not? Well, in general, very little has been updated from Mineplex since the last time I seriously played it back in 2016. A lot of things just don't work, or don't work well. Let me point some out. You can't switch lobbies sometimes, and there's constantly these random holes where lobbies should be. It's been like this for years, probably upwards of 5. Trying to queue for multiple games at once is broken. The chest system is way out of whack, because pretty quickly you just acquire a ton of extra low-tier chests that you have nothing to do with and don't care about, because you already have virtually an unlimited amount of the cosmetics that those chests gave you. Meanwhile, cosmetics that are supposed to be in certain chests are simply not in there, even though it's advertised that they are. Moreover, there are 2 ways to accept friend requests. One is to click the accept button in chat when you get a friend request, the other is to reciprocate by typing /friend xplayer. The latter does not work. It will break the friend system completely. Maybe these are just trivial complaints though. Would stuff like this really manage to completely put off a surge of new players from staying on the server, thus wasting Mineplex's efforts at getting this surge of new players in the first place? Maybe so, maybe not. Honestly, it probably won't, because a good deal of these problems have persisted even from when Mineplex first got popular and have stuck around since, not seeming to have any independent effect on the player base. but the bigger issues might. Since around August 2017, the experience leaderboards have been horribly wrong because of an abused bug that let people reach the top of the XP leaderboards without even playing the game. Being at the top of the leaderboards was so desirable that for a couple months, someone made a small business out of selling boosted experience accounts. Has the situation been mended after the past 3 years? Mostly, I mean the bug cannot be replicated anymore, and the vast majority of accounts that did have boosted stats have since been reverted, but hundreds do still remain. The real wins record for paintball is ranked number 7. The top 6 are bugged, and Mineplex staff will not remove these accounts from the leaderboards. And in any case, it's yet another awful look for Mineplex to let their systems get so horribly glitched and abused like this, especially on top of all the other blunders made by the higher-ups in the past. In the classic game mode, Death Tag, the winner from the Survivors team can end up being chosen at random, simply because the killers haven't killed anyone recently. What is this game design? In what world do you have a game where the entire point is to win, and the deciding factor in securing that win is completely random? The person with the number 1 win record for Death Tag, who should arguably be the best player, has a 0.2 win-loss ratio in the game due to how luck-based it is. That's a victory once every 5 games. I have always found this mind-boggling, and this horrible mechanic has been around since the game's release nearly 7 years ago. Only in the past year or so has this been updated to reduce the randomness so that the actual winner is only killed off after 10 minutes of no deaths instead of like 3, but this is still ridiculous when people before the last 2 survivors can still be killed at random. And there are much simpler, stronger solutions out there. December 3rd, 2016, I made this video.
Oh my Jesus hell, Mineplex, this worthless forced change.
This person came up with a similar idea. That doesn't mean this person copied me though, they just might not have known I made the video that I did and put those ideas out there first. If you want to hear a discussion about original ideas like that, go see this video I made, as well as a video I'm going to make in the future, Everything Has Been Done Before. Anyways, that's my tangent of the day. Death Tag is stupid, but it can be really fun and not stupid if they just dump that one horrible mechanic. But wait, there's more! Block Hunt functions in a similar way, where the game tries to maintain a hunter-to-hider ratio and will do so by randomly turning hiders into hunters when there's too few hunters, say if a hunter decides to leave the game. Fundamentally same broken feature as Death Tag. On Skywars, it is possible to spawn on an island that has no blocks in its chests. Mineplex says, get to the other island by using the planks from punching a tree and getting the logs. I just found this out while trying to get footage for this video, and unfortunately I dumped that clip without thinking twice. Either way, you can see why this and similar cases are a problem. The variance in the spawning chests in general can be ridiculous. You can get a full set of gold armor or just a helmet, and if you get to the second island, the game becomes magnitudes easier if the chests there have ender pearls. For those who didn't get ender pearls, have fun showing up to the middle when everyone else has already settled down there and raised a family. I mean, this is stuff I just figured out in my 2 main hours of playtime upon returning to Mineplex after years. I'm sure if I played other games and tried other features, I'd find a ton more example of things being terribly broken. When I lay things out like this, it may seem that fixing all of Mineplex's issues may be an insurmountable task. But no, things may be difficult, but they are also going to be easy for a few reasons. Remember at the start of the video I said I was talking only about Mineplex on Java? That's because Mineplex on Bedrock is doing really well for itself. It gets about 10,000 concurrent players, making it one of the top Minecraft servers on all of Bedrock. Perhaps I should have said this much earlier in the video, but I think Mineplex on Java will never die unless it dies on Bedrock too. The server is basically being kept on life support by its Bedrock counterpart. So people know about Mineplex, and that's both good and bad. More good than bad, I think. Getting their name out there is not going to be a challenge at all, while it is the biggest challenge for every other wannabe Minecraft server out there. Mineplex was the most popular server in the world for a good period of time, and people aren't just going to forget about it. It's like my channel. I may have left for 2 years and lost 90% of my viewers, but I don't have to work from the ground up like I did in November 22nd, 2015. That is much more challenging than what I have to do now to regain my popularity, and I think the same goes for Mineplex. Furthermore, Mineplex was the best server for more than one reason, and not all of those reasons have been washed away by time. It still has the infrastructure of a top server. Full sets of cosmetics, stats and leaderboard systems, events, maps. None of this has to be built from the ground up if the server is to be revitalized, and that's a big deal. It's like Mineplex is playing a video game where they're trying to make a successful Minecraft server, and even though they lost a lot of progress because they died, they already hit a few important save points and acquired the strongest items that will make regaining what they lost a lot easier. What's the bad part about being known? People see Mineplex for having its fall from grace. They laugh at Mineplex. It's achieved meme status for being so washed up. After the 7 plagues that made Mineplex look like a complete joke, YouTubers are probably hesitant to record gameplay on or associate themselves with Mineplex, and the good developers that Mineplex so desperately needs right now are probably frightened off by the absolute dumpster fires that put the server in its current state. So perceptions of Mineplex's history of drama and fiasco may be a big barrier, one that I don't think is easily overcome. Despite the good that comes from already having their name out there, the path to Mineplex's former glory is a badly clogged artery, and it's going to take more than a couple surgeries to fix. A problem that was, again, a commonly cited reason for Mineplex's decline. I must have used that phrase a dozen times. Anyway, poor management was yet another likely reason that Mineplex collapsed, and I am enthusiastically told by my knowledgeable peers that it is still a reason that Mineplex is going to struggle to return to its old popularity. The folks that I am citing so often in this video have superhuman levels of insider knowledge as to the inner workings of Mineplex's staff team, and though they may be biased and I am always taking their words with a grain of salt, I overall trust what they have to say because they have dedicated themselves so deeply to the server over the past 7 years. Mineplex currently has 2 developers. Hypixel has about 60. How does this server get anything done? Right? So it shouldn't be a surprise that, from the players' perspectives, things seem to get updated and problems fixed at the pace of a snail. I'd also like to point out that Mineplex's build team does not get paid. Their work is fully voluntary. Meanwhile, Hypixel has a dedicated build team who gets paid to build all the maps on the server, whereas a lot of maps on Mineplex are created and submitted by the community. However, this has not seemed to have any negative impact on the quality or efficiency of Mineplex's collective build team, including community submissions. The former has. There is a team on Mineplex called Game Insights whose purpose is to recruit skilled community members onto the team to discuss what would be best for the games and create an update document that production would use when updating the games. This is a really good system, but it ends up coming down to, again, lack of development time to be able to go through and update the games using these documents. And even when updates go out, sometimes development is shifted completely elsewhere on the server, and hotfixes for things that may have potentially broken during the updates generally don't happen much after the initial update itself and the 1 or 2 hotfixes that go along with them. Everything I've been saying for the past minute or so takes all its facts from Pace, aka rqil. Rail? I should have asked how to pronounce his name. I'm very confident that what he says is true, but if you have heard otherwise, please tell me. So the solution may be simple. Get more development so updates can come out at a reasonable pace, so Game Insights is actually a worthwhile system, so the server is decently functional and won't put off any potential new players with its lag and its broken features. Of course, it sounds simple, but it's never actually that simple. Just get more developers! My goodness, why didn't Mineplex think of that? Mineplex may have burned down almost everything they ever owned, but they're not completely brain dead. Anyways, hiring new talented developers costs money, and a good deal of persuasion. As I said earlier, Mineplex is not the prestigious server it once was, it's more of a joke. Any big-name established developer is unlikely to stoop so low as to join Mineplex in its broken, burnt-out state. Once more, solutions are difficult and good ones rarely come from the general public. Though I am a YouTuber, whatever that's worth, I am still classified as the general public. Still, I will give my best shot at a solution. I am well aware that it may be a horrible solution and worth nothing to Mineplex, who may have already considered what I am thinking. Mineplex, my uneducated but honest recommendation to you is to go to the CEO of good game development and, using whatever life savings you have left, commission them to design you a banger of a game mode that might be just what you need to restore your lost player base. If the plan actually gets you this far, use the replenished funds from this spike of new players to hire some new talented developers. That will help keep these new players around for longer, and from there, I don't know. These are some big risks. I don't know the first thing about managing a business. Maybe Mineplex doesn't really care what happens to their server on Java Edition, and they're willing to take it slow and easy with their success on Bedrock. The thing is, above any of this, I still think Mineplex's original games are, even after all this time, a ton of fun. That is probably the biggest reason I think Mineplex can come back. That, and as I've said before, it has the infrastructure of a 40,000 player server from its peak, and this infrastructure has not gone away just because those players have left. If it gets the player base back so that the mini communities for individual games have a chance at being restored, meaning that queue times for a runner aren't half an hour long, people will realize, hey, these games are fun, really fun. Why was this server so much less popular than Hypixel for so many years? I may just be blinded by personal preference, even after all these years I come back to Mineplex and find these games are fun. So I have faith in Mineplex. Man, stop. Honestly, this video is just so pointless. What will bring back Mineplex? Me rapping.